Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our invited guests from Scotch College, Mr. Dale Bennett, who is the head of senior school, and Dr. Kelly Schaff, Director of Operations, Scotch International Education. And again, thank you very much for your time joining our webinar today. So as you know that the Australian Grammar School, AGS Vietnam, has been working in strategic partnership with Scotch International Education and South Australian Certificate of Education, SAIS, with a shared visions of bringing into Vietnam an excellent and sustainable education quality. So to increase our parents and students' understand and confidence in Scotch College academic excellence, that's why I would like to ask a few questions about the senior school curriculum, teaching, learning activities, and so on. So Mr. Dale Bennett, the senior school journey is a very exciting and challenging one because we know that our students started for their 3-year journey toward the SAIS exam. So could you please share with us how Scotch prepare the student to get ready for this important journey?
Thanks, Hoa. Yeah, what's great about the journey at Scotch is that we've created a dynamic environment where students are really encouraged to achieve their best. So I think it's probably best to start at the end point. So we want students who are intrinsically motivated to learn for life. We want students who are ethical, creative thinkers and critical thinkers. We also want our students to be able to contribute back to their community. So we do a whole range of programs in the curriculum and outside of the curriculum to prepare our students for life. One of the key successes of our approach is the approach that we use with our teachers. So our teachers are very much coaches and mentors, and they work with our students as they go through their programs. So it's not just about giving them the knowledge and hoping that they understand. It's about actually making it very understandable and working alongside them. So in terms of thinking about the SAIS, we love the SAIS. The SAIS is a really dynamic curriculum. It is very individualized for learners. They can choose many and varied pathways. So at our college at the moment, we have 40 subjects that we offer in our SAIS program. And there are other programs that, in addition to that, where our students may be able to undertake vocational education studies or do university studies once they're in year 12. So that creates a whole lot of diversity and opportunity for students to find their thing, to find their pathway. The SAIS itself is recognised internationally. There are two parts to SAIS. SAIS creates an ATAR and it also creates a South Australian certificate. The ATAR, which is the Australian Tertiary Admission Rank, is a measurement used across Australia. And we perform particularly well in that aspect of SAIS. All our students pass SAIS, but in the ATAR we do particularly well. And we know we do particularly well because we're able to send students with those qualifications to international universities. In recent years, we've sent students to Cambridge, to Durham, to Oxford, to Yale, Singapore, and into colleges into the US, where many of them have done specialist subjects, including tennis, basketball, swimming, rowing, and soccer scholarships, in addition to academic scholarships. The SAIS's flexibility means that many of our students can achieve credits for skills that they have developed over their time. So, for example, we have some students who do the Duke of Edinburgh Award. So they can be recognised for their credits and effort that they put into the Duke of Edinburgh Award. Our music students, for example, do the AMEB, which is an international qualification. And that also can count for credit towards your SAIS. Many of our students will study at both local and interstate universities. So our demographic there is that we have probably about 25% that will go interstate to study. Predominantly, our students will study back here in Adelaide, and they will pursue courses mainly at Adelaide University and Flinders University. Yep. As you know, all students begin their SAIS journey in year 10, and the special programs that we offer in year 10 are in the curriculum. There is a compulsory study for SAIS called the Personal Learning Plan, which really focuses on vocation, on learning skills and understanding what you might be able to contribute as an employee into the future. So it's really about thinking about your purpose as a student, and the ways in which you can use your skill sets to develop your contribution into the workforce. So in that personal learning plan, they do a Moresby profile report, which is a careers report. It's very similar to a Myers-Briggs, and that profile takes into consideration student abilities, aptitudes, interests, as well as their academic. So it's a good guide because it helps them prepare for subject selection, not only into year 11 and 12, but because the data is all their own, it really helps them to understand what they're good at. And it's not just about nominating a career, it's about understanding the areas of interest. Because at the end of the day, I would like two pathways for our students when they graduate from year 12. And they need to know that they have those two pathways available to them, whether it be at university or whether they join the workforce or whether they then take a gap year before they decide what they're going to do.
Thank you, Dan. This is very informative, and this is especially that I learned that the SAIS program is offering the student with so much flexibility, even though with the IMEB, the student can also be counted for SAIS. And it seems like the Scotch graduates with SAIS has so much, opportunity to go to university, even, overseas or interstates and so on. So that's very informative. The next question is I'm going to ask is, actually regarded to, so apart from the main curriculum, what are the other community service and leadership program that the student would be able to participate in, and how would they be benefited from that?
Okay, underpinning SAIS is this desire to have in our students a whole range of capabilities and abilities to be a part of society when they leave school. So in order to do that, they need to have experiences where they develop teamwork, collaboration skills, communication skills. They need to be ethical thinkers. And so we need to give them experiences which enable those skills to grow, not only in their subject areas, but also outside. So outdoor education is a key component for the Year 10 program, and we work towards that as a camp program at the end of our Year 10. That has us travelling across to York Peninsula to a First Nations community, and we engage with that community and in the first term and then again in the fourth term. So we get involved in that community and then we go back out and we do service on what we call Goose Island. So it's a camping program, but we do service where we take responsibility for the island and the neighbouring island as well as contributing back to the local Indigenous community. We also undertake service learning. So service learning happens in many ways during the course of the senior school. We have a lot of student action teams that are developed by students over the years. So we have a global student action team. We have a wellbeing student action team. So we had wellbeing community action team, global action team, a service action team. Then we also have students who engage in creating their own action teams. So we have a medical research action team that is student-led and run. And all these action teams are student-led and run. So we have a medical research one, we have a politics society, we have an entrepreneurship society, we have a drama society, we also have a fashion society, and we have obviously a STEM society because STEM is really important here.
Yeah. Well, that sounds very interesting. Can you please share with us a little bit more about the Global Student Action Team? In particular, what the students do? Right.
So in terms of the Global Student Action Team, obviously, before COVID, there used to be opportunities for us to travel a lot more and be engaged. But I guess our view around being a global citizen is understanding global issues. So all the way through our curriculum, you would have heard from the middle school, all the way through our curriculum, there is this emphasis on global relationships and global understanding. And in order to do that, we participate in global type conversations. Yeah. So we do that through forums. We have partnership schools through Gale. We have 8 schools that we partner with around the globe. And currently we have students who are choosing subjects and topics to discuss, which are dear to them. So they've recently completed a series of webinars themselves around the environment and sustainability. They've also done one on the voting age and the voting processes of each of the countries that are participating in. So they get into topics which are of global interest to them, but they also develop an understanding of cultures back here in the school. So we have many special days where we will feature a culture and explore what that culture means. We have a strong understanding of Chinese culture, for example, because we do have a lot more. We do have a lot more Chinese students here with us, but that global reach is extending out, and so we do have students from America, we do have students from the UK, we do have students from New Zealand. So it's Vietnamese. We also have students from Hong Kong, a lot of students from Hong Kong. So it is really a growing global population. But really, for me, the global conversation is around sustainability and environment and the sustainability goals from the UN. And so addressing each of those and being aware of them and educating our students and getting the students to understand them better. So we have a lot of educative awareness raising programs in addition to cultural celebrations.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. It's really good that the student at Scotch has a lot of opportunity to internationally exposure. Now, back to the questions that I asked from the beginning, I would like to understand a little bit more about these subjects in the curriculums from year 10 to year 12.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to that for a moment as well. So we've had a previous conversation while we talked about middle schooling. We talked about that being the time to give everything a go. Senior schooling is very much around making choices and picking paths of specialisation. Mr. Bennett talked previously about a subject called the personal learning plan. That's one of only a few compulsory subjects that all students need to study as part of their SACE. So given the flexibility of the SACE, the compulsory areas of study at stage 1, which most students complete in year 11, they must complete maths, they must complete a year of English and at least 1 semester of maths, plus their personal learning plan. And then when they get to stage 2, they have to undertake a research project. And then they're the compulsory elements of the SACE. And then around that, students can choose from a huge array of subjects. Now, we're very lucky at Scotch. We offer a huge breadth of subject compared to many of our other local independent schools. We have subjects that fit into kind of different domains. So we have the English, math, sciences. And when you're thinking about sciences, again, it's more broad than just the physics, chemistry and biology. It's those subjects like nutrition, sports science, agriculture, psychology. As part of a science offering. There's a range of subjects from within the arts program, dance, music and drama. We have languages other than English that we offer. We have business innovation, media studies. So there's a whole breadth of pathways that students can choose. And what we try and do is help students from the middle school decide what they're good at, work out what they're good at, and then they pick subjects and all of these offerings have a pathway through to year 12. As part of their SACE, a lot of our students will choose to accelerate, which means that they might study some year 12 subjects when they're actually a year 11 student. And even our local universities offer Head Start or Accelerate type programs where students can undertake first year university topics as part of their year 12 study, which can be converted into tertiary, the ATAR, I guess, the ATAR credits. So anything that a student studies at year 12, at year 11 and 12 can count towards their certificate of education. Most of what they can study, with very few exceptions, will be able to be counted towards an ATAR. And what we try and do is help students have a really diverse a diverse SACE profile, so that when they want to go to university, they've got a range of options available to them. They haven't kind of only met prerequisite for one or two university degrees. We want our students to have choices at the end of year 12, which is why we offer the breadth of subject that we do.
Oh, that
Kelly,
sounds excellent.
Kelly, we might touch on the research project, which you just mentioned. So
yeah.
The research project is a compulsory element of SACE. Our students do it over 1 semester. They do it at year 11. It's a year 12 subject, but they do it at year 11 as Yeah, and as that research project, that really is learning about how to do research, which really equips them well for university. Now, we know that works because Flinders University have done a research on the research task, and what it's shown is that any student who achieves a B or above will succeed at university because it gives those independent research skills. Fortunately, research project for us is a really strong part of our curriculum. We have over 45% of our students get an A or A plus within the research project. So it is a really strong part of our curriculum. Each year we have at least 3 to 6 merits, full marks that come out of the research project. We are one of the most successful in the state. The research also enables students to participate, and I think that's the value of the SACE, that it's also about being able to participate beyond the school. So that means that we interact with the community a lot. So I'm just thinking about one of our research students who recently completed research into nutrition and diet, and that now has been posted on the wellbeing hub for the state, is known as SAMRI, and that organisation have taken this student's research work and posted it as part of their education work for the general public. So we have our students participating in communities with their research. We have students who have investigated new technologies around concussion. We have students who have actually spent a lot of time dealing with COVID and understanding the ways in which COVID can be embraced as such and lived with. So they've researched into how can you successfully live with COVID in your community. So it's a great area of opportunity for students to explore ideas that go beyond any school curriculum. And really it is elevated thinking, critical thinking, and it's one that we're really proud to be a part of.
Wow, that sounds that the curriculum is so strong and offers such a diversity of subjects that the students can choose from, which is really, surprising me, especially with the business innovations and science subject that can offer the student with the flexibility, even with a direct entry offer to university. And it's very impressive with the research project. This is more like the work integrated learning in the community. Yeah, is that right? Yeah. So the next question is related to the. We would like to know a little bit more about the classroom learning activities and engagement, apart from those, the project outside in the community. What are special about the classroom activities, learning engagement, and assessment?
Okay. Yeah. If I can reflect on that, the best way to approach that question, is. So in stage 1 or year 11, all the work is assessed internally by the school. Okay. In stage 2, 70% of the work is assessed internally by the school, and 30% is assessed externally. Each piece of work is assessed up against performance standards. So each subject has a set of performance standards, and each subject has to present a plan to our governing body, the SACE board, for approval. That's part of their quality assurance. So the next part of their quality assurance is to take samples of student work from each subject that they do and each unit of work that they do at stage 2 at year 12, and then moderate it across the state. So to ensure our students they ensure basically fairness in the state. And to help us understand that, we have many of our staff who engage in the SACE process. So they are either markers of exams, they either set exams. We've had 2 chief moderators of subjects on our staff. So our staff are actively involved in running subject organisation meetings and professional development in order to really make sure that we know the SACE inside out, which then supports our students. So as they go through that assessment cycle, we're looking for knowledge and understanding, we're looking for analytical skills, and we're looking for applying that knowledge and analysis to a different circumstance. I've taught literature, all right? So, English literary studies.
English literature,
yeah. So English literary studies. And so they really focus on the skills of developing critical thinking to interpret text. We do individual text studies, we do multiple text studies, and it's a really rich environment to think critically about literature and to create literature. So you do a lot of thinking about how you can create a task. So it's not just about doing an essay on a book. It's actually about showing that you understand that book and the ideas in that book and being able to translate that to a different context. So, for example, when we studied poetry, we studied 5 poets. One of the poets I brought into the school, we ran poetry workshops. Our students then created their own poetry, and then they had to have that published. So it's that notion that you keep making it a rich learning environment, that you keep looking for ways to inspire and engage students so they can show knowledge. And really, it's up to the teacher to create that environment. There is a lot of flexibility for teachers to create a really dynamic learning environment. So you just don't have to lock into the same test each year and the same approach each year. You can freshen it up. You can actually think of new and different ways to create a valuable learning experience for students. Kelly, do you want to talk more about any of the assessment?
No. I think one of the things we probably want to touch on, Dale, is the success of students as a result of our assessment, the way that we deliver curriculum and assess them, and how the Scotch students' performance in both the ATAR, you mentioned the SACE completion, but our ATAR results.
So I think about the last 10 years. So I've been here for 10 years. Over that 10 years, I've witnessed a remarkable journey in our SACE results. And that journey, particularly in the last 5 years, has put us as the highest performing co-educational school in the state. And we quite often rank in the top 3 or 4. Yeah, so that is our goal, is to be right up the top of the state with our ATAR results. What does that mean? So that means up to half of our students receive an ATAR score of 90 or above. So it's marked out of 99.5 is the highest mark. So
yeah, that's a very excellent result.
Yeah, so we often receive around, so often we will have 2 or 3 perfect scores for students in the state. Yep, we will have 6 students who achieve over 99, which is an accolade. It's anywhere between 25 and 30% of our students achieve over 90%. So a third of the year group achieve over 90%. Over 95%. A third of the year group achieve over 95%. And then quite often it's around the 48 to 50% achieve over 90. That means all our students basically in the last 5 years have received the university course of their choice. So it's enabled them to go into university and to succeed in the course that they have selected. We know our students do well at university because we have many graduates who have achieved well and are now back out in the workplace and doing amazing things. So when I'm thinking about these students who graduate with these amazing scores, what sort of courses do they go into? 45% of our students will go into the sciences. Okay, and that will be a whole range of sciences, whether it's applied sciences, medical sciences, you know, the many diverse pathways through science our students engage with. Probably about 30% of our students will engage with business, and then the remainder will engage in a whole range of diversified pathways. At the moment, we're really proud of our performing arts because we have over 30 students involved at 6 universities around Australia in their performing arts courses. So, and that's from the last 3 years. So these students are at Australia's greatest performing arts schools and doing really well. So we're really proud of their achievements. The graduates that we produce know how to be successful. They know the questions to ask. They know how to interact with people. They know how to communicate effectively. They know how to learn. And quite often the reflection from the universities back to us is that Scotch graduates are highly valued because of the way in which they participate in their university programs. So our students aren't scared of putting up their hand and answering questions and participating in forums to ensure that everyone is learning. So in terms of our current representation in medicine, for example, I can think of at least 19 students from the last 5 years that are studying to be doctors. And I know that one of our students recently, she started up the the undergraduate doctor program to support younger undergraduates. And she was our former college captain. and she now looks after that program. And I know that we've got 8 students in that program at Adelaide University. So it's very much that community contribution and looking after those beneath you and supporting those beyond, that have come after you to really achieve and succeed. So it's one of the values of the school is that real contribution to your society and your community.
Wow, that's really amazing, and it's a very impressive number that you have 45% of students going to science, and no wonder the teachings and learning. Back to what you just mentioned, I felt that the teachings and learning is really innovative at Scotch, very innovation. So that's the reason why we have such a very good number, very impressive. So the other question is, so what the student and the parents talk about Scotch one after they graduate? I know that they come back, they contribute to the community, and so on. But in general, what is the parents, alumni talk about Scotch?
Okay, so the alumni talk about Scotch is like one of the key recruiting things in independent education is word of mouth. All right. So at Scotch, we only have one printed advertisement, and that's at the local shopping centre. Okay. So we don't go into any big billboards or bus posters, airport that slides because we know that we have such a strong community connection that people hear about Scotch and what's Scotch. So I know that our parents really value what's on offer because they value the well-being. All right, and that is a key driver for our students and their families. They want their students to grow up knowing how to be proactive around their well-being and how to look after themselves and be good people, just as much as they want an academic outcome. So it's well-being that really drives a lot of that. And we have a lot of doctors and specialists and professional people around town who really engage with the school community because they too have those values. That's the type of person they want their child to be. A number of our parents are also entrepreneurs, and they see that the dynamic curriculum at Scotch really offers opportunities for students to see how they can be entrepreneurial in the way in which they succeed in life. And so that's, and then we have another sector, which is the agricultural sector, and we do a lot of dynamic work with that. So, for example, we've been asked to participate in 3 conferences for agriculture this year with our students, and no other school has been asked to do that. We're currently, we've revamped our agriculture program to be one where we're just looking at the use of technologies and innovation. And so we're going to have fences on our farm that don't actually have fence. So they're all going to be just beams of electricity that keep. So it's, and we've got a robot that walks around, or trundles around the farm planting grass. And we have all sorts of technologies, weather sensors, yield, that help us to understand yield rates and all sort of interesting dynamic technologies that are about producing food, which is so vital for this century. And it's not just about having a farm patch, it's actually about the technologies and innovation, which mean that students can understand the food cycle and the ability to feed the world. It's a really dynamic space to be in. So our parent body, back to that question, so our parent body are really engaged, all right? So we have 25% of our student parents are returning students. So there's a really strong connection back to the college. From that means that we're able to sustain our values, and it also means that we're able to have a reach beyond Adelaide, because many of our graduates will travel around the world and then come back to educate their children at Scotch. So that's really impressive that we have that retention rate, and they make a choice to come back. And our year 12s will say, oh, I want my kids to go to Scotch. So if you have students who have a love of school and therefore think, yeah, wow, this is the environment and the culture and the future that I see for my children, then you get this really strong community connection. Scotch is highly regarded in town, highly regarded. We go about our business in a very, very connected way. We are very transparent with our communications. We're also, we have a lot of integrity as a school, and we also put it out there that we have high expectations to be a contemporary school, to be an agile school. So, for example, when we went through COVID, we didn't miss a beat. We didn't miss a day of learning. So we just straight away went back into our well-established IT resources and technology approach, and we delivered our curriculum beautifully. So much so that at the end of COVID, or our first lockdown, our enrolments went through the roof. So we gained 36 students after the initial COVID period, because we developed a real reputation for being able to deliver learning even while students weren't able to be at school or staff able to be at school. So Scotch enjoys a solid reputation. We are seen as leaders in the independent learning sector and schooling sector, and we know that we have a responsibility to maintain that culture of respect and reputation. And we do all we can to do that.
That's very wonderful, Dale. Can I just ask another question that come across my mind? Are there a lot of students from interstates that come to Scotch? And the other question is, do you have a long waiting list that the students have to wait for? Because it's come from my knowledge, some of the independent schools, especially high reputation like Scotch, would put parents and students on a long waiting list. So could you please share with me about that? Okay,
yeah, thanks, Sam. Can I just say waiting lists? We don't actually believe in waiting lists at Scotch, because inevitably a student will go and find their education somewhere. So there's no such thing as a waiting list, because they have to be somewhere. But yes, so what I can tell you is that we do have enrolment targets that mean, we reach capacity. And last year and this year we have reached capacity. Next year we are 8 enrolments until we reach capacity. So, and that's on the Torrens Park campus for the senior school. So we know that places are limited and that they are in demand. So we're fortunate to be in that position, but you're only in that position because of what you do. Our junior school is more a bespoke bijou experience, and therefore we like to keep them small. And so that school is small and personalised, and that starts. They have around 350 students, whereas as you move through the middle school, we're up to 370 students. I believe, Kelly, is 370, and when you get to senior school, we go to 410. Those school sizes are fantastic because it means that we're not too big. And we know our students. So teachers at Scotch want to know their students, and they want to know them beyond the classroom. They just don't want to know them as learners. And that's really important. So they want to know what they're doing in their co-curricular activities. They want to take an interest in what service they're doing for others. And they want them to be good people. So in terms of thinking about capacity and the environment you create, you can only do that if you do cap it at some point. And you say, this is as many as we can take to still be able to get those outcomes for our students. So that's what drives our capacity, understanding that to get the optimum program, this is the optimum number of students, and this is the way we deliver it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And to answer the other part of your question about do students come from interstate, the answer to that is yes. We do have students that come from interstate. We have a fantastic boarding house, and we've got probably about between 80 and 90 boarders in any given year, from year 7 through to year 12. And so probably there's quite a lot that come from regional South Australia, but then quite a large proportion that come from interstate and overseas as well. Our boarding house is very highly regarded, as is the school, but our boarding house is very highly regarded amongst the Australian Boarding Schools Association as well.
Oh, yeah, that's very informative to know, because I just keep wondering if there's a student from interstate interested in Scotch and go to South Australia, Adelaide to study, which is really good.
Yeah, it's a very competitive market. There are a lot of boarding schools. There's a lot of independent schools in Australia and a lot of boarding schools. I think our attraction point is our beautiful grounds, the fact that we have a really well-developed agricultural program, and the fact that our technology is so efficient that our families feel really connected to the school. And Well, you asked before about the parents. So every activity that we do in the co-curricular and in boarding, they have a parent support group. And so we have a group of parents who support each of those activities, and they are there. They're cooking breakfast for students at training mornings. They're there, celebrating the after-match awards that students are given. They're there participating in a whole lot of community events that really are about supporting their students and the actual community itself, and growing and nurturing the community. So, boarding's key to that success as well.
So the parents are very engaged into the Scotch community too, to support their children and teachers and so on. Sounds very, to me, it's very impressive. Such a strong values and integrities, and what Scotch have done in terms of technology, the dynamic in curriculum. That's all very informative. Well, thank you very much for sharing a lot of information to us today. This is very insightful, and I trust that the parents and the students back in Vietnam will be very much benefited from this information that you share. So again, thank you a lot. Thanks a lot, Dale Bennett and Kelly. Thank you for today.
Thank you.